With almost 200,000 hotels on the planet, it takes something special to stand out from the crowd.
Some hotels achieve a status that goes beyond 5 stars.
When you go there as a regular person, you are a celebrity.
Butler service.
You have everything you could possibly want.
Want to sleep in Marilyn Monroe's bed? Of course you can, for $7,000 a night.
And satisfy the world's most demanding guests.
It's no surprise for a guest to spend anywhere between $70,000 and $90,000 on room service alone.
Today, we're checking in to one of the most famous hotels in the East.
Morning, ma'am.
Morning.
How may I assist you?
You can't go to Singapore without going to Raffles Hotel.
A playground for the rich and famous.
Attentive room servants would find Mr. Noel Coward swimming in the pool, naked.
With a past as exotic as its surroundings.
It has been a very racy hotel in its time.
People came to live it up and get into mischief.
Hey, look. What she's drinking.
To discover the secrets.
This is the window where Michael Jackson waved to the crowd.
Of how to be one of the world's greatest hotels.
Don't give away all our secrets.
Singapore. An exotic tropical metropolis where East meets West. This former British colony has grown into a cutting-edge global financial centre. But in amongst the modern skyscrapers and radical architecture, there's one place where traditions still reign supreme. Raffles Hotel has been a fixture in Singapore for 130 years.
Singapore has changed so hugely, and yet still you find in the midst of this Raffles, a little enclave where every blade of grass seems to have been cut to the prescribed length.
It's an anomaly. It's a little white jewel box in a great big modern city of skyscrapers.
Now it's reopening after a 2-year and multi-million-dollar renovation.
It's 8:45 a.m., so good numbers today.
It's the first national holiday since the upgrade, and the staff are expecting a full house.
The first entrance, I must make it very impeccable. The gravel driveway must be swept nicely.
The 5-star guests will demand 5-star attention to detail.
Oh, this is bad. The gravel is not being swept nicely, you see. So I have to get the sweeper to get it swept over.
Everything must be perfect, from the doorman.
The pressing of my uniform is most important. This is a very unique uniform. Everybody knows which hotel I'm working for.
To the cocktails.
We're gonna need a bit more gin. It's always good to be prepared. It's like going to war sometimes.
The hotel's wealthy guests will have high expectations.
You're very rich. You've checked into Raffles. Of course you have. And now you just want to be cosseted. And look, here comes the butler.
A top suite here can cost up to £10,000 a night.
Sadiqa, you checked your suite already? All good?
But at least it comes with your own personal help.
Just make a little adjustment to the alignment, all right, to make sure that it's good. Look at this small one. We are responsible for the guest journey from pre-arrival all the way to departure. So all they really need to do is to press a button in the suite to connect to the butler, and we'll be there to look after them.
Butler service is all about knowing their clients better than they know themselves. Here, they keep a file on each guest so they can anticipate their every need.
I more or less wanted to adopt the butler I was given on my most recent visit. Her name was Jin, and I thought that was a practical joke being played on me by the management because they know probably a little bit too much about my drinking habits.
So tell me about the guests. What is the guest like?
Understood that Mr. drinks decaffeinated coffee.
Good.
I placed in
2.
Mrs. loves sweet berries. And I have placed in the sweet berries tea bags as well.
Some guests have more unusual tastes than mere fruit tea bags.
I recall one time when a guest actually asked me, Grace, could you do me a favor? So I like to buy the fake snakes and the fake reptiles because he would like to frighten the wife in the bed. So he wanted me to buy those fake snakes and put it in the sheets. And I said, is this really what you want me to do? And he said, yes. I said, would Mrs. get a real fright? I don't want her to freak out. And he said, no. We pull pranks on each other all the time. And then the rest is history.
But at this tropical hotel, the visiting wildlife hasn't always been plastic.
There were certainly times when the outside world reared its head at Raffles. One of the most famous times was when a tiger was discovered underneath the billiard room.
Singapore had once been a jungle island, but by the early 1900s, the locals thought they'd seen the last of any tigers. That was until one escaped from a travelling circus and checked straight into Raffles Hotel.
This is the famous site, the bar and billiard room. The first building was an elevated building, and under the building is meant for storage of your empty bottles and your boxes. Of course, the staff were very frightened when they saw the tiger, reported to the manager of the hotel. There used to be a school here. The principal was a British and a sharpshooter. He grabbed his rifle. When he ran across the road, he realized he was still in his pajamas. There was no time to go back. So they told him, sir, under the building. He fired 3 shots at the tiger. Was the tiger dead? No, he missed. He felt very embarrassed, you know. He said, I must save my reputation. He loaded his gun, and this time, the tiger turned and faced him. And true to his reputation, he fired between the eyes.
Over a century later, with its teak furniture and whitewashed walls, it still retains the style of an exotic colonial outpost.
Here's somewhere that feels very British, but it's this interesting mix of the presence of the old colonial power and the beautiful wilderness of Singapore.
But this bastion of Britishness wasn't built by the British.
Raffles was created in 1887, but began very, very modestly. It was a simple bungalow down on the seashore, run by 4 Armenian brothers.
The Sarkis brothers were among many astute entrepreneurs drawn to the fast-growing colony of Singapore.
The Sarkis brothers already had a property in Penang, and they saw this as the next stepping stone in their group of hotels.
To attract the British, they named it after the founder of modern Singapore, Sir Stamford Raffles.
Almost from the off, Raffles was incredibly successful. Singapore was booming, people were coming through on the way somewhere else, and with all those guests, the Sarkis saw a need to expand, and slowly the hotel developed into the hotel we know today.
In 1897, the brothers knocked down the original bungalow and replaced it with the main building. The only hotel on the island to install electric lights and fans. Singapore had its very first luxury hotel. It soon became the destination of choice for the rich and famous.
Raffles has been blessed with an almost unbelievably long, glamorous list of household names.
Nelson Mandela, Charlie Chaplin, Ava Gardner. Hollywood royalty and royal families from around the world have all stayed here.
Everybody went to Raffles. It was the place you go to.
One of the longest-serving staff members, Leslie Danker, has an enviable autograph book.
Over the years, I met so many famous people, celebrities, writers, actors. They all came here. I met Sting, Anya, Diana Krall, Vanessa Mae, Donnie and Marie, and David Beckham. Also, I met up with him. Jackie Chan also.
And the real big spenders get the presidential suite. Antique furniture, Tiffany silverware, hand-woven carpets, and 260 square meters of space. To you and I, that's almost 4 times the size of the average house.
This is the famous presidential suite, where a lot of heads of state have come here, stayed here. But I'd like to mention the Queen of England. She came here, and I had the privilege of meeting up with her. And she was such a pleasant and nice lady. It was the greatest moment of my life.
But there's more to Raffles than meets the eye. After a multi-million-dollar refurbishment and 2 years closed to the public, one of Singapore's most famous luxury hotels has just opened its doors again.
You're all ready?
My first visit to Raffles, I was a very spoilt little boy. I went there when I was 8 with my family. It was really love at first sight. Pulling up outside Raffles is always a gorgeous moment. Not least because you will be greeted by Narendra Singh, the magnificent, mustachioed, beturbaned Sikh keeper of the kingdom, and possibly the man with the strongest handshake in Asia.
When Singapore first became a colony, the British brought in Indian soldiers to keep the peace. To this day, it's tradition that the doorman is a Sikh in military-style dress uniform.
I suppose there's one aspect of Raffles I feel uncomfortable about, and that is that it seems to say colonialism, it's still here. It's the fact that the British brought their own staff, Sikhs from India, the fact that you were really not going to meet any Chinese people or Malays in Raffles. It was all going to be one's own kind. Fortunately, now it is a very diverse, very multinational place.
I feel very proud because they want to take pictures for memories. They go home. They've been to Raffles Hotel, and they also can buy a toy of doorman at the Raffles gift shop. It's not only just a toy now, they also have umbrellas. Whatever they make, they always give me one of the thing as a gift, as a present.
The problem with some of the iconic hotels is that they feel they have to really modernise, but actually there are a million different modern hotels. What they've got to do is celebrate their history and keep that nugget that made people fall in love with them. The thing with Raffles is, even though to some extent we should find that colonial past very awkward, it feels like a sort of Disney version. It's like this sanitised, acceptable face of colonialism. And therefore, I think for a lot of people, they don't really think about the history attached to it. They just soak up that atmosphere and the ambience of it.
See you. Take care.
Today, people are queuing up for a taste of history in the famous Long Bar.
So this here is a 25-litre barrel of gin. Now, the reason why we get it sent to us in such big bulk is because we actually go through quite a lot of gin.
Early visitors to the colonies drank gin to mask the taste of the quinine they took for malaria. Modern patrons can't claim the medicinal benefits, but the demand for gin remains high.
You can imagine the amount of waste we produce in terms of glass bottles if we were to keep getting our ingredients sent to us in bottles.
Don't give away all our secrets.
Bars are so important in Grand Dam hotels, and the Long Bar is just famous worldwide. It's one of those things you've got to tick off your bucket list.
11 o'clock, doors are open, guys. Let's do this. Woo!
Husband doesn't drink, but that's okay. I'll have 2 at least.
But in the early 1900s, women would not have been seen drinking alcohol in public.
They could sit in a bar and have a cup of tea or a juice, but they were not allowed to have alcohol. If a gentleman wanted to buy a lady a drink, there was nothing much he could do.
There was a very, very smart Chinese barkeeper, Mr. Nyam. He learned that ladies should not be drinking alcohol in public, but he knew from his clients that some of them would very much like to.
Right, we're going to start with 30 mils of gin.
He invented a brand new cocktail.
Just a touch of the cherry liqueur, 10 mils. The orange curacao,
A blend of 9 ingredients.
We have pineapple juice.
But this fruit concoction packed a punch.
It was a very dangerous weapon called the Singapore Sling.
You've got quite a lot of booze in there, actually. It does not taste as if there's a lot of booze in there, but once you have, you know, 1 or 2, you'll find it quite hard to stand up.
Most importantly, it doesn't look like an alcoholic drink, thereby allowing the hotel's female clientele to secretly enjoy a tipple.
And everyone was doing this. Hey, look. What she's drinking. It's okay, it's just fruit juice. Don't worry about her.
This sneaky snifter is now the country's national drink.
If you're in Singapore and in Raffles, not having a Singapore Sling, you have yet to see Singapore. Sorry.
7,000 miles away, this West London distillery plays a vital role in Raffles hospitality.
This is exactly where all the craftsmanship and what we call the magic happens.
Sam Galsworthy and his team supply the hotel with gin.
Gin's flavourings all come from the ingredients you put in. These ingredients here, these are the basis, staples, recognised botanicals: juniper, angelica root, licorice root, cinnamon, cassia, orange and lemon peel. This is what makes a very classic, stunning, smooth London dry gin.
To mark the centenary of the Singapore Sling, the hotel commissioned its own bespoke gin and created a brand new version of the Sling.
For this creation, we have looked at some ingredients that would be prevalent in the Southeast Asian basin. So you've got pomelo, from part of the grapefruit family, lemongrass. This is real underlay of spice, and that spice is needed to travel. You need to be able to taste the gin as it sort of battles its way through the different, really flavourful ingredients.
Sam himself has a very personal connection to the hotel, going all the way back to the founder of Singapore.
So my name isn't actually Sam, my real name is actually Stamford, and that was the name after Sir Stamford Raffles, my great-great-great-great-great-uncle.
Raffles worked for the East India Trading Company. He recognised that Singapore, with its natural deep harbour, could become an ideal trading post in the Far East. In 1819, a treaty was signed and Singapore was open for business.
Singapore, at the end of the 19th century, was bustling, it was busy. There were ships with masts everywhere you looked.
Since then, Singapore has become one of the most important commercial hubs in the Eastern Hemisphere, and its port is now the second busiest in the world.
All the world convenes here. There are 100 cultures in Singapore. It's a meeting place, it's a melting pot.
Singapore is the very heartbeat of the East. I think it's hard to find a more multicultural, hyper-diverse, all-embracing city, and you can't go to Singapore without going to Raffles Hotel.
Author Somerset Maugham wrote that Raffles stood for all the fables of the exotic East, but its past was sometimes as hot and humid as the island itself.
Raffles' reputation has actually changed a great deal over time, and much more than people would realise.
In the early 1900s, the hotel was a haven for the first wave of expats. Not always the classiest of characters, they lounged around the veranda at the front of the hotel, looking out for any women that went by. This spot soon became known as Cad's Alley.
Raffles was the meeting point of the society in Singapore. Now that sounds very high society, but not as elegant as one would like to imagine. We're talking about rubber planters and palm oil planters.
People who were living by themselves, often in the jungle, tough life, and they came to Raffles to live it up and to probably get into mischief.
As Singapore grew and more travellers stopped off here, it was fast getting a reputation as a party town.
Travelling through the tropics was really very onerous. And suddenly you get to Singapore, somewhere which has a very different atmosphere, a very racy atmosphere. There's quite a lot going on here, and not all of it might be strictly legal, and let's have some fun.
While staying at Raffles, it was as if you were in a world of your own. If you stepped outside, very quickly you would be down on the docks and amongst ne'er-do-wells, opium dealers, confidence tricksters, and people looking to part you from your money.
Nowadays, it is synonymous with five-star luxury and fine dining, with 6 restaurants, a spa, and rooftop pool.
The very rich, from what I've observed, love to create their own little world, and therefore they've got this solar system which consists of superb hotels in various great world cities.
So in 1993, where else would the biggest pop star in the world choose to stay?
This is the entrance of the presidential suite, premier suite in Raffles Hotel. And this entrance has a very special significance for Raffles Hotel. This is the window where Michael Jackson stood here and waved to the crowd.
Jackson's legendary Dangerous tour was greeted with hysteria in Asia.
In Singapore, when you mention, especially taxi drivers, you want to go to Raffles Hotel, the first thing they say, that's a Michael Jackson hotel.
The Prince of Pop was staying with the Queen of Hollywood, Elizabeth Taylor, and both wanted to be treated like royalty.
He wants to have the whole zoo for himself. Singapore Zoo is beautiful, but we cannot close off for a day.
But what guests want, they get. So the zoo came to Raffles.
It was one morning, the orangutan and a chimp visit him for breakfast. Then after that, they went to the swimming pool with the orangutan and the chimp to have an ice cream. That was really, really something.
Okay, and this is a famous photo I always admire. I met up with Michael Jackson and also took a photo with him. It's not easy to have a photo, but I managed to do it.
Raffles Hotel on the tropical island of Singapore has been putting up the rich and famous in grand style for 130 years.
Hello, good afternoon.
Please, welcome. It's quite humid out there. Yeah.
There are no hotel rooms here, but 115 luxury suites, each with its own veranda overlooking one of the hotel's 7 gardens. However, most visitors head straight for the bar.
I need to cut more pineapples.
To help make up to 1,000 Singapore slings a day, bar manager Priscilla has a little helper.
Our very own Raffles Sling shaker machine. It has 6 inserts, whereby we can actually put one of these big shakers in there, and each one of these shakers houses up to 3 cocktails. So we make about 18 Singapore slings at one go.
Sadly, no such mechanical help for concierge Ross Lee.
I need to have this folder in place in 224. The guest will be arriving shortly, so she just needed. We always have to use staircase, no lifts.
Rosley, incredibly efficient. That's why he's got the job. He's been there for at least 30 years.
With over half of its bookings coming from returning guests, it seems it pays to go the extra mile.
I walk like 12,000 steps in the hotel, maybe 12 to 15,000. Plus walking home, it'll be about 27,000 steps per day.
I think all great hotels have a lot of things in common, but it's a little bit like saying tennis players all do roughly the same thing. They do, but there are some tennis players who are better than others.
Princess? Princess? Madam? Yeah.
The specific nature of Raffles' greatness, I think, is a little bit like that sort of difference. It's almost invisible, and yet you are aware of it when you experience it.
Wow, that's nice. And wow, that's a very nice family picture you have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great day. Thank you very much for coming by. There's one time that most craziest thing was she lost her 1 carat diamond ring. We searched everywhere. I did. We actually vacuumed off the whole of sewerage treatment. We did it. We couldn't find it. Seriously. I was telling her, the only thing is, when was the last time you actually saw it? It was on the sink. So when I actually, with the engineering, hold the sink and shake it, we heard like a coin. Cling, 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 cling. He's a professional. He has a hammer. Give 1 knock, bang! There you are. These are the little craziest thing that I've ever met. Yeah, sometimes things happen.
Make sure the door is locked.
When it comes to delivering a personalized service, the butlers are on the front line.
During the stay, we would actually find out more about their plans for the stay. Perhaps there's something that we can pick up from conversation that would help us anticipate their needs before they ask us.
The last time before the guests left, they mentioned that they did not have enough time to explore the city. So I've chosen these places for them and added into the itinerary.
Beautiful. I think they will be very pleased with this.
They are stewards of this iconic establishment. And I can remember as an 11, 12-year-old, there on the telephone was a button that said butler. And, you know, I pressed it and this impeccably dressed man arrived at the door and asked how he could help. And my father said, no, we don't need you, it's all right, thank you very much indeed. And he went away and I pressed it again and he came back. I must have done it 3, 4 times. And the man looked as pleased and delighted to be there the 5th time as he did the 1st.
But I was looking at the clock. Oh, I think it's about time for me to have it won.
One of its most famous returning guests started a tradition that relies on the grandfather clock in the lobby.
It's my best friend. Not only our best friend, it's the most loyal servant of the hotel.
Noel Coward was a regular at Raffles for nearly 40 years, and one of his most famous songs has been played here every night since 1931.
Every evening, without fail, when the clock chimes at 8 o'clock in the evening, that's where the residence pianist will play the song. Since 1931, every evening.
I'll see you again whenever spring breaks through again.
So many world-famous authors have stayed here that its writers' bar was established in tribute to them.
Raffles has always been irresistible to writers, like catnip. Writers like Kipling, Jan Morris, and John le Carré, they'd all come here. So I came here in a spirit of pilgrimage.
This is the palm court wing of Raffles Hotel. Right on the ground floor, last but one room, that's where Somerset Maugham used to stay.
Somerset Maugham was an English novelist and playwright, one of the most popular authors of his era.
He'd come to a bar in Raffles, like this one, to eavesdrop and to engage people in conversation and then produce the stories that enchant us even now. So it's an irresistible place for writers. It gives you the privacy in which to work and the company in which to get material.
One of the hotel's best-kept secrets is the nighttime antics of one of its most famous visiting writers.
It is probably a not known fact that Noel Coward not only enjoyed Raffles to the maximum, but he also enjoyed the swimming pool there very, very much. And attentive room servants and people who were up at 4 o'clock in the morning would find Mr. Noel Coward swimming in the pool, naked.
By the 1920s, the wives and daughters of plantation owners were starting to arrive on the island, so the entertainment on offer needed to move up a gear.
A lot of changes have been taken place. Right on the driveway, they put a structure, opened 21st January 1921, and that became known as the ballroom of Raffles Hotel.
Despite the searing heat, strict rules of dress were observed.
People were not travelling with simply an overnight bag. They came with steamer trunks. So when they set up at Raffles, they had the full outfit to dress up to the nines for dinner and really to have an amazing time.
If someone stepped onto the dance floor in the wrong attire, the orchestra would stop playing, and they would be asked to leave the floor. But beneath this semblance of civility, the hotel was a hotbed of debauchery.
Raffles, I think, has had its quite raffish moments. I think it has been a very racy hotel in its time.
With their husbands left minding the shop on the plantations, the wives came here looking for some extramarital fun. Pairings on the dance floor would often lead to the bedroom.
You know, the concept of diplomatic immunity, well, in a lot of these fabulous hotels, people feel they have a guest immunity. I'm spending $1,000 a night. Of course, I will behave as badly as I like. Quite often, in a intimate manner, dare I say it. Of course, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but what happens in the Ritz, in the Balmoral, in Raffles, stays in those places. Everyone's very discreet.
Arshak Sarkis was happy to turn a blind eye to this lucrative bed hopping. He told a guest there is just one rule. At 6 a.m. we ring a bell and you all go back to your own rooms. The 20s and 30s were golden years. But the party couldn't go on forever. Known as the Grand Dame of the East, Raffles is the epitome of British colonial splendour.
Raffles was founded during what's known as the high noon of empire. This really was a time when Britain ruled the waves.
But Britain needed to be able to defend its territories from attack. In 1938, as the clouds of war gathered in Europe, a £65 million naval base was opened on the north coast of Singapore. When war broke out, the colonialists were confident that with such a large military presence at hand, Singapore would remain secure.
There was very much a feeling that Singapore, at the outset of the Second World War, was impregnable and would have been safe from any sort of invasion. The Japanese very rudely put paid to that notion, and in one of the biggest, most shocking defeats in British military history.
Here already. Ack gunners are in action.
23,000 Japanese soldiers advanced rapidly across the island in a brutal onslaught. At Raffles, famously, the band played on.
Dancing at Raffles was something that went on regardless. The band must play on. So even when the Japanese troops were advancing across onto the island, they carried on dancing behind the blackout blinds until actually the hotel itself was taken over by the Japanese.
Singapore was taken by the Japanese in 1942. They took Raffles at the same time. It wouldn't be completely out of the question to say Raffles was one of the places where empire died.
The fall of Singapore was a devastating blow for the Allied forces. Singapore spent 3 horrific years under a brutal Japanese occupation.
The hotel was taken over as enemy property and became, instead, the resting place for Japanese officers.
Arathun Sarkis, the then general manager, and many of his staff were kept on by the Japanese to run the hotel.
At the end of the Second World War, Japan faced defeat, and its guests, the Japanese officers, many of them felt that it was more honourable to commit suicide than to face that defeat. So What we believe is that some of them took their lives while staying at Raffles.
It was only when the war was over that one of the long-buried secrets of its loyal staff was revealed.
Now, this is the area of special significance because the Japanese invaded Singapore. And the faithful waiters knew that the Japanese will take souvenirs out of the country.
The waiters buried the most valuable silverware in the garden.
A very famous silver wagon. It's very heavy, made of silver. And these faithful waiters remembered the spot. After the Japanese surrendered in 1945, 12 September, they dug up, refurbished again, and we used in, at that time, the Raffles Grill.
Luxurious, romantic, and comfortable.
Post-World War II, it was as popular as ever among the well-heeled. In the decades that followed, Singapore changed beyond recognition. The reclaimed land in front of the hotel was built on, and modern tower blocks sprung up around this former beachfront bungalow.
It used to be sea in the front, where you see the cars are moving. Facing to the front was the beach.
But as the 20th century drew to a close, the Grande Dame was a rather tired old lady, and its faded grandeur was no longer in vogue.
It was very tired, it was very jaded, a little bit shabby.
It wouldn't be difficult to find people who would be critical of the downhill slide the hotel may have taken at that time.
Struggling to compete with glossy high-rise hotels, and sitting on a large plot of what had become valuable land, the hotel was under threat of demolition.
Sooner or later, people will decide, how much is this real estate worth? Why have we got this very attractive, very fetching, but low-rise hotel on this particular space? That's worth $1 billion. Let's put something else there instead.
Its fortunes changed when, in 1987, the Singapore government declared it a national monument. With its protected status ensuring its future, investment followed. And in the past 30 years, hundreds of millions of pounds have been spent restoring it to its former glory, preserving areas like the world-renowned Tiffin Room.
I think it's one of the oldest restaurants in the world, I would say, because it's more than 100 years of history.
I think the true skill in a development of an iconic building like that is keeping what was really important to keep, while subtly incorporating gentle upgrades.
Raffles has even adopted a few technological advances.
All controls have been tested, right?
That's right.
Butler button?
What's it?
This is actually a guest room management control system that actually operates the lightings, the curtains, the temperature, and the television.
Because whenever we have any of our guests coming in looking for the, say for instance, boutique, we can just show it to you. Just press.
I have a cranky old friend who likes to say that he dislikes all change, especially change for the better. And I think where Raffles is concerned, I used to feel the same, but having seen how well the place has turned out, I no longer feel quite like that.
Modern, beautiful, I love it.
The hotel has come a long way from the beachfront house. The newly renovated atrium lobby has a chandelier with 8,000 crystals suspended over a white marble floor.
Morning, ma'am.
Morning.
How may I assist you?
Oh, they said I could just come in and have a look.
I can show you around, one second.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, please.
I've come here today because I stayed here in the end of 1974-75 with my husband on a honeymoon. And we stayed at the old Raffles Hotel. And so I've come back to see what they've done.
So it's completely changed the time you stay and now different.
Yes.
So this is where you have the high tea.
It's not a place where people come on business so much or casually. They come here for important moments, and the weight and the privacy of those moments is all around us.
And now the next generation of staff are being trained to look after all its future guests.
When you're welcoming the guests, right? Welcome to Raffles Hotel Singapore. Your handshake and your eye contact, they're level. I'm a head doorman now, but I'm also training the 6 new doormen who are on board now. I expect the highest standard. Most important thing that the service should provide from the heart.
Everything's good?
Yes, very nice.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for your patronage. When they arrive as a guest, when they leave as a friend, when they return, they are as a family.
You have a good trip. Look forward to you. I hope you enjoy your stay.
Yes, we do.
And we have many return residents around.
Oh, very good. Take care. We have a privilege to meet so many different type of people in different walks of life. People who are really rich and people who have saved an entire lifetime to stay with us.
Bye.
So we are very privileged to meet guests like that.
I think Raffles Hotel will definitely outlive all of us. It's a building, but it has a life of its own.
Despite the high rises around it, it remains forever Raffles Hotel.